The world is full of locations that seem to draw darkness into it, where death is as thick as the morning fog. The Island of Dolls, Freetown State Forest, Okigahara, the Black Forest. We're going to explore one of these dark woods, where reports of ghosts, cryptids, and even murders have taken place, where an afternoon hike might be fine, but stay after dark and it may be more than you bargained for. Let's take a look at what some believe to be a portal, a gateway for supernatural creatures to enter our world, England's own Cannock Chase Forest. Hello everyone, and welcome to Wicked Encounters, where we explore just what goes bump in the night. I'm your host, Allie, and today we're going to explore Cannock Chase Forest. As beautiful as it is haunting, Cannock Chase Forest, known locally as The Chase, is located in the north of Birmingham, Staffordshire. The area has been designated as the Cannock Chase Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty since 1958, and, being only 26 square miles, is the smallest area to receive this designation in mainland Britain. Initially a former royal forest, today the Chase gives its name to the Cannock Chase local government district and plays host to many scientific pursuits, thanks to its remarkable range of flora and fauna, despite its small size. It also has plenty of hiking and biking trails, museums, the ancestral home of the Earls of Lichfield, Shugborough Halls, war memorials, and even an open-air music venue. With so many popular attractions and activities to do, it's a surprise that anyone would be scared of the place. But don't be fooled. Cannock Chase is believed to be a portal for the supernatural to enter into our world. There have been reports of creatures such as werewolves, demons, cryptids, and ghosts, all having been spotted in the seemingly picturesque woods, and even the belief that it was once home to a Celtic tribe that was said to have performed satanic rituals and blood sacrifices. We'll start with some of the more factual horrors that have taken place in this ancient forest, beginning in 1960, when the Chase was held as the scene for something horrible. The murders of 3 young girls, known as the A34 murders. Beginning in the mid-1960s, young girls began disappearing, and eventually the bodies of 3 girls between 5 and 7 were discovered. Julia Taylor was the first girl to survive the ordeal and explain what had happened to her, to an extent. On December 2nd, 1964, at 9 p.m., 9-year-old Taylor was lured into a car by a man claiming to be a friend of her mother and referred to himself as Uncle Len. She was told her mother asked him to take her to her aunt's home to fetch Christmas presents, so she climbed in and sat there calmly until she noticed that he had driven past her aunt's home, and his conversation became unsettling. She remembered begging him to drive her home, to no effect. Taylor was driven to a slag heap near the mining village of Bentley, where she was sexually assaulted, strangled, and then thrown half-naked into a ditch where she was left to die. Fortunately, a cyclist was making his way by when he heard weak sobbing noises over the pouring rain, where he found Taylor. He was able to flag down a van that took her to the hospital. Had the cyclist not heard her crying and stopped to find her, it is believed she would have likely died from exposure within 20 minutes. One eyewitness to Taylor's abduction gave the police a description of the car, though they were never able to find it. An incredibly unfortunate turn of events, as the next girl kidnapped wouldn't be so lucky. Margaret Reynolds disappeared on Wednesday afternoon, September 8, 1965, walking the short distance from her home to her primary school. She had been walking with her older sister, Susan, when the two parted to walk the rest of the way to their respective schools. Her parents quickly learned that she had not attended any classes that afternoon and reported her missing. In the following weeks, 160 officers questioned more than 25,000 people, with 200 posters being distributed featuring a photo of Reynolds. Reports of a man attempting to lure young girls into his car had been popping up the previous months leading up to Reynolds' disappearance, and unfortunately, the person had gotten her. 3 months after Reynolds' disappearance, on December 30th, 5-year-old Diane Tift disappeared on the 5-minute walk home from her grandmother's house. She had been carrying a small, pink plastic handbag with a white strap she had received as a Christmas present, and a relative believed she had seen her walking past a laundromat along her way home. She never made it to her house, and her parents reported her missing at 7 p.m., 4 hours after she had left her grandmother's. Over 500 officers from across the region looked for her with no luck, until January 12th, when a man named Tony Hodgkiss was cycling with his nephew past Cannock Chase when he noticed a body in a deep, waterlogged ditch. Initially thought to be a doll, it was then revealed that it was the body of Tift, who had been raped before being suffocated with the hood of her own coat. As police searched the site, a second body was discovered 300 yards away, the partially decomposed remains of Margaret Reynolds. By now, a pattern was beginning to emerge with specific targets, methods, and dumping ground. A few more girls had been victims of attempted abductions, but fortunately they had been able to escape, until 7-year-old Christine Darby on August 19, 1967. Darby had been playing with 2 friends near her home when she was lured into a gray car from a driver who was looking for directions. She climbed into the car when the driver seemed confused and asked her to enter the car to show him the way, promising to drive her back to her friends immediately afterwards. Her friends watched as Darby climbed in, and the car immediately reversed, going off in the opposite direction, towards Cannock Chase. They immediately ran to Darby's home where they informed her mother of what had happened, and she, in turn, immediately contacted the police, who launched a manhunt. The 2 friends gave a detailed description of the man, and 24,000 posters were put up featuring Darby's photograph, with one eyewitness coming forward. He told police that he had seen a gray car heading towards Cannock Chase, and that there was a dark-haired girl in the passenger seat that resembled Darby. The police began a thorough search of Cannock Chase, with 300 officers beginning the search close to where Reynolds and Tift had been found. Within hours, children's underwear and a child's pump was found 3 miles from the location, and 3 days after her disappearance, Darby's body was found, sexually assaulted, and suffocated like the previous girls. Bits of tire tracks were discovered near the crime scene, which were used to narrow down the suspected murderer's vehicle as a Farina Austin Cambridge or Morse Oxford, which matched the description Darby's friend and the eyewitness gave. Unfortunately, the Austin Cambridge was one of the biggest selling cars in Britain, which made it so investigators ended up checking over 1 million files and 23,000 vehicles needing to be traced. But finally, the case was drawing to a close. 10-year-old Margaret Alton had been building a bonfire when a man pulled up in his car, asking if she would like some rockets from the passenger seat. When she approached the vehicle, she noticed that there were no fireworks visible, only that the seat was covered in newspapers. The man tried to drag her into his car, but she broke free and ran off, a scene that was witnessed by 18-year-old Wendy Lane, who saw the man then speed away with his head down. She contacted the police, informing them of the vehicle the man was in as a green Ford Corsair with a cream-colored roof, and even remembered his license plate number. Though when police ran the numbers, there was no Corsair under it, but switching 2 numbers around and there was an identical vehicle to the one Lane described, and it belonged to a man named Raymond Leslie Morris, who lived in the area. When Morris was brought in, he bore an uncanny resemblance to the suspect drawings done up from Darby's friend's description. He did own a green and cream-colored Corsair, and said that he had previously owned a gray Austin Cambridge. Upon reviewing records, it was revealed that Morris had been questioned 4 times in relations to the abductions and murders of the young girls, and each time, he had been let go thanks to an alibi from his wife, though one questionnaire had noted that they were left unsatisfied with the alibi only being given from his wife, and no one else to corroborate his location during the abduction of Darby. It was also revealed that car insurance records showed Morris had previously owned a 2-toned vehicle like the one used during the abduction of Julia Taylor, when she went missing, and that he had clocked out of work an hour and 15 minutes before Darby's disappearance. Morris was detained on November 15th and brought in for questioning. His wife was as well, who initially stood by her statement on her husband's location, until eventually caving and admitting to giving false alibis for her husband. While going through his vehicle and flat, homemade child pornography was discovered, with the photos featuring a distinct watch and scars on the hands that matched Morris's. The jury took only 2 hours to convict Morris on the murder and rape of Christine Darby and the attempted abduction of Margaret Alton, leading to a sentenced life in prison. There wasn't enough evidence to convict him on the murders of Tift and Reynolds, but officers firmly believed that he was the one responsible. And surprisingly, the abductions seemed to cease after his arrest. Morris remained in prison until the monster of Cannock Chase, as he was named, died on March 11, 2014 at the age of 84. Now, let's get into the paranormal side of the chase. Ghost hunters have long wandered through the woods of Cannock Chase, seeking out some of the ghosts said to haunt the area. The chase has on it the Cannock Chase War Cemetery, where ghosts of World War I and World War II soldiers have been seen wandering about. During World War I, the chase had a large military camp named the Cannock Chase Reserve Centre, which was used by the New Zealand Rifle Brigade, along with a prisoner of war hospital that had the capacity for up to 1,000 patients. With so many dying during the war, and with over 5,000 soldiers buried in its cemetery, it's no surprise that a ghost hunter or hiker who stayed a bit too long might see a soldier trying to carry out their duties in their afterlife. But soldiers aren't the only reported ghosts that one might see. There have also been reports of an old man with a cane and wide-brimmed hat that wanders the woods, and is believed to be a former gamekeeper, along with a bedraggled woman wandering in a confused state. The ghost of Henry William Paget, the first Marquis of Anglesey, has also been seen, as he would often use the forest as his personal hunting grounds. Fitting, then, that his ghost has been seen riding horseback, accompanied by a pack of his faithful hunting hounds. There is also a parachutist who appears stuck in midair forever falling from the sky with no landing in sight, a cyclist who enjoys disappearing in front of onlookers, and a young monk confused by his surroundings.
Who are you people?
Though one of the more famous ghosts is that of a black-eyed child. In the late 1970s, reports of a black-eyed child being encountered started coming up, beginning with a young couple who claimed to have encountered a strange girl while walking through the woods. The girl is said to be dressed in old-fashioned clothing and cries, asking for help in a childlike voice with her eyes covered. For those who have encountered her, they have reported feeling a sense of overwhelming fear and unease, along with physical symptoms such as nausea or headaches, though the girl has about her a hypnotic capability as one draws near. Once someone is close enough, she lowers her hands to reveal her entirely black eyes before disappearing and reappearing from tree to tree. She's not just a ghost reported from the 1900s either. A pair of teenagers were said to have come across the black-eyed child on a camping trip in 2021, after they had settled in for the night. Around midnight, the pair heard giggling and decided to take a peek, seeing a shadowy figure dance and weave between the trees, seeming to teleport from location to location. She then disappeared for the night, letting the two wait for sunrise as they were unable to fall asleep from the dread that filled them. As they made their way back to their car, they saw the girl peeking behind an oak tree, watching as they went, as a seeming way of farewell. One local ghost hunter, Robert Palm, believes the girl to be one of the local children who were killed during a diphtheria outbreak in the 1800s. Diphtheria is a highly contagious bacterial infection, with one result of the sickness having the eyes appear sunken and dark. I believe the girl may not be a ghost at all, but a cryptid known as a black-eyed child. Creatures that take on the form of children and ask for help to be allowed into your home, that carry with them a deep, sickening darkness that is almost as black as their eyes. They serve as a reminder to always watch out for who you allow into the sanctity of your home. Perhaps an important lesson that those at Castle Ring should have heeded. Castle Ring is a Celtic hill fort dating back to 500 BC, with some of its defenses still visible today. An eerie sight amidst the chase's dense woodland, the castle was once home to a Celtic tribe known as the Cornoi, who are said to have performed satanic rituals and blood sacrifices that may have caused Castle Ring to be the epicenter of the portal for otherworldly entities to come through. Though carry with that a pinch of salt. Cornois were pagan, and I couldn't find any actual reports of blood sacrifices. Back in ye olden days, anything pagan was seemingly viewed as satanic.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Unless it was conveniently converted into a Christian belief. Though, the idea of Castle Ring being a portal could be explained in other ways. After all, for many years, the area around the chase had been used for mining. Perhaps during that time, the miners may have dug a bit too deep. Werewolf or dogman sightings are rather common in the chase, with multiple sightings of wolf-like creatures being spotted by hikers. In 1975, a paranormal group was investigating some of the sightings of a snarling beast until they themselves found it. A large, dog-like creature stood up on its hind legs to almost 7 feet tall before disappearing in the brush. A scoutmaster had also apparently seen the creature near the cemetery, where it too noticed him, stood up, and then ran off into the woods. The belief of a cannid beast lurking through the forests have been used to explain the multiple disappearances of local pets, particularly dogs that have gone off leash, though this is also a reason why some believe that big cats roam the forests. With phantom cats having been supposedly reported throughout the chase, the West Midlands Ghost Club has claimed a number of eyewitness reports have come forward to them in regards to a large wolf-like creature sighting, though one paranormal investigator, who wishes to remain anonymous, believes them to actually be subterranean creatures that have come up after old earthquakes created openings to the world above, allowing them to hunt the local deer populace and pets, or through the miners doing their thing. Honestly, I can see why he wants to remain anonymous, but then again, the Cannock Chase has stranger things than potentially subterranean dogmen. It has the Pigman.
Man-pig.
The Pigman of Cannock Chase is perhaps one of the strangest creatures reported. Originating at the end of World War II, it is said the creature was born from a union of British and American scientists conducting a series of unique experiments. Supposedly, they had abducted a woman, hypnotized her, and then impregnated her with an artificial human-pig DNA sperm cell to create a creature to perform tests upon. The woman was monitored for 10 months with nothing for the scientists to report, so they deemed the test a failure. That is until a year later, where they discovered that the woman was heavily pregnant and finally gave birth to a baby that had the snout and face of a pig and the body of a human. Years later, the human-pig hybrid fled into the woods of Cannock Chase to avoid being seen by humans, and for decades since, people have reported seeing a tall man with the head of a pig roaming around the woods, with some reports being as recent as 2006.
Some people say that Man-pig isn't real. Well, I'm here to tell you now, Man-pig is very real, and he most certainly exists.
Cannock Chase has as much variety in its supernatural sightings as it does with its flora and fauna. It even supposedly contains the British Bigfoot, with footprints and claw markings having been found to support the supposed cryptid sightings, and reports of UFOs, with declassified government documents revealing the Ministry of Defense had concerns about the area being a hot spot for alien activity, with accounts of silent balls of light, cigar-shaped tubes in the sky, and a 10-foot light hovering over Stafford Road. It's truly head-spinning the number of activities that have been reported in and around the forest. I could literally go on and on with the various sightings, newspaper clippings, articles, posts, and so on, but I tried to keep this one relatively short to avoid getting murdered by my editor. Sorry, Coots. But perhaps all of the excitement in the chase is due to its beauty, an ancient forest that is teeming with life, and maybe death wasn't able to keep some from experiencing it still. What do you think? Would you, or have you, visited the Cannock Chase? Have you experienced anything paranormal on a hike in your own local forest? Let me know in the comments. I read them all for future video ideas and to see how many other wonderful people enjoy the supernatural side of life like myself. If you want to see what I release in the future, consider subscribing, liking this video, clicking the bell, and sharing it with others who like spooky stuff. Many of my videos are thanks to suggestions given to me, so feel free to let me know what you'd like to see covered next. With that, I'm Allie, this is Wicked Encounters, and I'll see you next time. Bye!